Good evening. Thanks for being here. It's been another day requiring a lot of patience for drivers as they slowly make their way through Goldstream Park north of Victoria after emergency crews had the road closed for much of the weekend. And as they wind their way through what can often be a treacherous stretch of the highway before climbing the Malahat, they will see and smell the aftermath of the crash and fuel spill, effects that may be felt for years. Thousands of liters of gasoline spilled onto the roadway and into nearby Goldstream River when a tanker truck crashed into the rock face. Today, environmental crews were back at the scene, mopping up and assessing the damage. Stephen Andrew has the story.
Cleanup crews worked furiously to remove gasoline-soaked soil from a stretch of the Malahat Highway. A tanker truck crashed into the rock face Saturday, spilling thousands of liters of fuel. RCMP believe alcohol could be a factor in the crash. The driver was arrested and released as crash analysts continue to investigate.
Potentially, it could have been disastrous from a safety standpoint, fire and/or explosion, given the nature of the product being carried in the transport truck.
That meant fire officials had to close the highway for 22 hours. Beckett says it was a necessary inconvenience.
Safety of the responders, the first responders, the firefighters, the police, the paramedics, and those involved in righting the truck back up onto its wheels has to come first.
The stench around the area where the truck crashed is at times a little overwhelming. The Minister of the Environment suspects that cleanup crews will be here scooping up the contaminated soil well into tomorrow. But this site is just the beginning of the devastation.
See the gas sheets? Most of the gas is evaporated, but underneath there's still a residue. When you step on it, you can see the sheen and the rainbows coming up from underneath the rocks.
Gasoline poured into the Goldstream River, killing thousands of fish and other marine life. How quickly would these fish have died?
Instantaneously. They would have died immediately. I'm pretty sure of that.
Biologists are calling it one of the worst environmental disasters they have seen on southern Vancouver Island. The Environment Ministry says the aftermath of the spill could last as long as 4 years.
The fortunate news is this is only impacting one, perhaps two cycles, and those others may not be impacted, although if there's longer-term impacts to food sources in the river for the salmon, that does have an impact.
That is a serious concern to First Nations, who rely on the river for food.
It's going to be a devastation to our people because it is a food source that we use on a daily basis during the winter. We use it for not only for consumption, but we use the salmon itself in ceremonial practices that we carry on with from day to day.
Columbia Fuels, the owner of the tanker, says it's brought in experts to manage the cleanup. The company says it will make things right.
We're being told that this event, while significant, really had a short-term impact on that particular portion of the river. And we will stay involved and we will continue to monitor and continue to clean as required. But yeah, we will not walk away from this.
Columbia Fuels says the driver of the truck has been suspended with pay as the police investigation continues.
Stephen Andrew joins us now with more. Stephen, you had an update late this afternoon from the West Shore RCMP about the driver and charges against him. Tell us more.
Hudson, police say the 33-year-old Nanaimo man is being investigated for assaulting a police officer at the time of his arrest. Now, the West Shore RCMP says the officer involved was not seriously injured. And they also say the driver has not yet been charged with impaired driving, but they say they expect that charge will come. Now, he has been released from custody, I should say, on a promise to appear in court, and that date is set sometime in June.
Now, Stephen, Columbia Fuels is saying tonight that the gasoline evaporated within an 18-hour period, but what do the First Nations at the scene say about that?
Well, as you saw in my report, Hudson, I mean, they're simply not buying it. They're saying if you look at the riverbed, it's very easy. The biologists and the fisheries manager of the Saywood First Nations showed us simply by moving those rocks as they were doing there, pollutants were attached to the rocks and then floated up to the surface. And then, as you see there, they found dead fish. And also, I should mention that when they did that, when they picked up those fish and when they moved those rocks, Hudson, the odor of gasoline became much stronger around the water.
You were saying when you got back to the newsroom that the stench was really strong in your face.
It was in the back of your throat, and you'd get used to it, and then you'd walk away, you'd come back, and then it was really at times overpowering. And also, we saw many of the people that were working in that area wearing masks.
All right, we'll stay on the story. Stephen, thank you.
You're welcome.